What is going on everyone, Nostalgia925 coming at you with another explaining Digimon episode. In this video we are going to be talking about a Digimon that is not really that known in comparison to most Digimon we've already discussed. I'm talking about a particular Digimon that I already mentioned specifically in the Palmon Digivolution line video, as the Digimon can be seen as an ally of Palmon and its Digivolution line. To be specific, I'm talking about Fanbeemon, clearly a Digimon inspired by the bee. I'd like to end the intro with a comment of Steven Seegert that wrote the following in the Nostalgia925 community page. Fanbeemon, or Fanbeemon, however you want to call it, don't know that much about it. I am a bit lazy to research and it's so comfortable to get the knowledge from a video of you. The part with the royal base seems to be interesting. Well, yes, simply because some people might feel a bit lazy, I thought that it would only be more interesting to do this Digimon research, as you'd be surprised as to how much you might learn about the world and even about yourself by doing those research. By the way, this reminds me, in the war declaration video against Pokemon, Professor L wrote the following interesting comment about Digimon research. Digimon research should be its own profession. Digitology, cyberscience, digitech, whatever. And yes, why not? You know, there is simply way too much to explore and to learn from that universe. But anyway, yes, in this video I will be covering not only Fanbeemon but also this mysterious royal base that has a rather unknown purpose. We're going to look for certain theories and speculations in order to have somewhat of an idea of what the base is actually all about. As was told in the intro of the video, we are going to discuss Fanbeemon, an insectoid Digimon, clearly a reference to the bee, the yellowish flying insect. Marine Solar wrote the following in the Nostalgia925 community page. I hate bees, so I don't really like its Digivolution line, but maybe you can make me like it a little bit with your video. I challenge you. I do like its design, looking like a nice little and cute Digimon. I hope it has some fans despite being a bee. Well, first of all, challenge accepted, and secondly, I will make sure to do my best to give the little bee some more fans. And trust me when I say it, there is really more to this bee than meets the eye. For starters, its daily life is different than those other insectoid Digimon, like for example Ikunemon, a Digimon that we certainly have to take a look at. Fanbeemon is a dedicated worker with a cheerful personality. However, most of the time you will see it work on the construction of the royal base. It contributes by carrying home data left on fields of flowers or vegetation, little by little. Those are then used as raw material to construct the base. Ironically, despite the fact that Fanbeemon is known as a cheerful one, it is classified as a virus species. And as you all know, every Digimon has more or less their own personality depending on their attributes. Most Digimon species are classified into 5 attributes: data, vaccine, free, variable, and in our case, virus. And each of these attributes stand for something specific. Some Digimon either have a combination of those attributes, and some have their attributes unidentified or lack them entirely, and these will end up affecting how a Digimon will behave. I must say that this does bring a lot of diversity to the Digimon world with a solid touch of unpredictability, as we don't know how a Digimon will behave. Digimon with a virus attribute like Fanbeemon tend to be violent, with a thirst for power and domination. And maybe that is already a hint that is leading us to some more knowledge of that royal base they worked on. Maybe its construction has something to do with power. We will see that after we've finished discussing Fanbeemon. Remove Before Flight Gaming, the God 11, wrote the following in the Nostalgia925 community page. I think Fanbeemon is an awesome X-antibody Digimon, definitely top 5 insect Digimon line. Personally, I also see Fanbeemon as one of my favorite insect Digimon. As those subscribed to this channel would know, in this channel I already discussed numerous insect type Digimon. Think of the Tentomon video where we discussed very powerful insectoid Digimon, and I also discussed or at least mentioned other bee type Digimon. Think for example of HoneyBeemon. It is the armored evolution of Veemon when it uses the egg of knowledge. Or take for example Flybeemon. It is also a Digimon that I mentioned before but I have yet to discuss it. It is Hopemon's armored evolution when it uses the egg of knowledge, the same as Veemon with HoneyBeemon. While both Digimon are great, without a doubt with a story that is very interesting, still I would say that Fanbeemon will be a bit more powerful than those two, as it has another way of functioning. You see, the difference is that Fanbeemon is always near allies, and at the moment it feels threatened, it will redden its antenna and contact them, summoning a huge crowd of its comrades. And you have to know that Fanbeemon can fire serrated stingers, which I believe are venomous. considering that they all attack in group, you might be heavily poisoned. That is why it is actually wisest to just run away from it. I am more than convinced that the stingers are poisonous because Fanbeemon's in training form, Paroromon, can inject a tiny quantity of venom with the tiny stinger on its rump. And considering that Fanbeemon is the evolved form, I believe that the venom might only improve in quality. But now that you know that, let us take a look at its champion form. Anthony Ailman wrote the following in the Nostalgia.fav community page. It is interesting to note that his entire line are X-antibody types and that a pretty big chunk of it are cyborgs that look more like robots, and probably act like robots than cyborgs, I guess. The organic parts aren't just noticeable. A very interesting comment, and we'll get to it. So you see, Fanbeemon's champion form is called Waspmon, a cyborg Digimon derived from the wasp. Reason why Waspmon looks so cyborg is because it belongs to the Metal Empire family. Members of this field are generally mechanical Digimon. Fanbeemon was rather organic in appearance, on the contrary to Waspmon that has a body that is almost, if not entirely, mechanized, and with that, it gained another role inside the role base. The antenna parts on its head that were once used to call comrades have now a high reconnaissance ability. Because of it, Waspmon is always patrolling the vicinity on the lookout for Digimon approaching the base. By using the propellers on its shoulders and the stabilizers on its back, it is able to rapidly swoop down on enemies just for trying to come closer to the base. And trust me when I say it, Waspmon has more than enough means to cause damage. It can, for example, rapid fire its wide aperture laser cannon. It can also fire a single blow after charging up energy. Maybe a little bit like the burst attack of the orbital frame Jouti from perhaps my favorite game ever, The Zone of the Enders.
You can charge power for a burst shot. Burst attacks are very powerful and penetrate the enemy's guard.
When Waspmon uses the Bear Buster, as it is called, it can even bring down larger Digimon. The only problem would be that it is difficult to hit agile enemies with it. That is why it is mainly used against enemies on the ground. But still, that wouldn't really be a problem because Waspmon has means to face flying type Digimon or those that are grounded, making it already quite extremely impressive, especially for a B, and we're only talking about the champion form. The ultimate form is called Cannonbeemon, an android Digimon, instead of the cyborg Digimon that was Waspmon. And maybe for your own interest, let me tell you the difference between a cyborg and an android before we tackle Cannonbeemon. The difference between a cyborg and an android is rather simple. A cyborg is an organism that is part organic and part machine. It combines the biological and the mechanical. It may look identical to a human but not necessarily, and a good example would be Major Motoko Kusanagi from the Ghost in the Shell franchise. She is a cyborg just like Waspmon. An android on the other hand is a robot that also could resemble a human being, but is one that cannot combine organic and inorganic components, and for that the best example would be the Terminator. I think that in the media this one should be the best example, and this explains a lot about Cannonbeemon. What we can say is that the mechanization of its body took yet another extreme step towards technological prowess. Cannonbeemon can now cover a vast range with all its technology. It can fire a shot from its high caliber laser cannon, which can even shoot clean through strongly armored opponents. Or if needed, it can fire a simultaneous bombarding barrage from the container on top of it. But let us be patient, we will get to the usefulness of this Digimon once we explore the royal base. Let us first discuss the Mega level. Ultimately, the Mega level is called Vespamon, and this time it is a cyborg Digimon instead of the android that was Cannonbeemon, the ultimate form. The Digimon is extremely powerful and boasts an astounding degree of stamina. It keeps on moving during combat without tiring, sort of like the androids in the Dragon Ball franchise that also could not get tired. Andres Marrero wrote the following in the Nostalgia.fav community page. Isn't it odd though, that the final stage of the family, Tiger Vespamon, is a close range when the rest of the Digivolution line is entirely long to mid-range. It is completely 180 in design and battle capabilities. Well, that is actually an extremely interesting comment, but I think that I have to make some slight little corrections. You see, Tiger Vespamon is not the final stage. Vespamon is, and I'm talking about Vespamon without the prefix Tiger. The story goes as such. You see, despite a Vespamon's expertise, it is only the best of the best, belonging to the top 0.08% that will be inducted into the covered Honey Corps Royal Commando, and then it will be awarded a codename. And the only known codename is the one of Tiger, hence Tiger Vespamon. The prefix Tiger is a code name given to a Vespamon that by far was the best in solo combat. And this one in particular is wielding twin blades shaped like tiger fangs. Do you know what this means? This high probably means that there are other Vespamon in that corpse. Other Vespamon that certainly have a particular expertise on a particular domain. So on the contrary to Andreas Marrero's comment, it might actually be that among the best of the best, one was selected for its abilities in long-range weapons. Here is a comment of Milo Stosic, written in the Nostalgia 5 community page, and by the way, I really hope that I did not mess up your name, but anyway, the comment says the following. Can Fanbeemon digivolve into something else than Waspmon, like for example Flymon or Stingmon? I think it looks very similar to Flymon, and DinoBeemon can digivolve into Tiger Vespamon, same as Cannonbeemon, the next form of Waspmon. If it can't digivolve to Stingmon, at last it must share some similarities with Warmon. So to reply to this comment, to my knowledge, Fanbeemon cannot digivolve to another Digimon aside of Waspmon. Flymon does indeed look similar to Waspmon, and yet there are no known links according to my knowledge. However, the Digimon DinoBeemon is the one Digimon that will link Fanbeemon to Warmon. As you all know, there is a dragon Digimon called Veemon, and an insectoid Digimon called Warmon. I actually discussed both of them in separate videos along with their armor Digivolution forms. Through specific circumstances which I explained in the Veemon Digivolution line video, Veemon can further digivolve into X-Veemon. Warmon can further digivolve into Stingmon, and together they can DNA digivolve into one being. Now of course, if you've only watched the anime, then I think Paildramon would be the most known. Clearly the dragon side took over, and I would even say it is clearly the Veemon side that took over. However, once the insect side takes over, then they would fuse into the being called DinoBeemon, a mutant Digimon, a chimera of a dragon and an insect possessing the name Terrible Bee. It is difficult to classify the Digimon as a species, however, clearly the insect nature is more pronounced. It has an extremely ferocious personality, not at all to be compared to the Paildramon variant. It flies through the sky with its 4 wings and accurately perceives the opponent with the compound eyes on its head, so it can reliably choke the life out of its opponents. Its nimble movements leave behind after images while it chops up the opponent. And truly sorry if I have to refer back to the Zone of the Enders, there is an orbital frame called Arjet that also leaves after images once it moves. It is actually very impressive, and that would actually be the same with the DinoBeemon. But anyway, DinoBeemon clearly is an extremely terrifying creature. It is really best not to come across one in your journey. Among the many things that DinoBeemon has in common with Fanbeemon, there are 2 things you need to take into account. So first of all, the fact that it belongs to the bee family simply by reading its name, that is already one thing. And secondly, DinoBeemon has the virus attribute, just like the Fanbeemon line, meaning that it also tends to be violent and is driven by power and domination. However, it also has the attribute free. Now I must say that it is still difficult to say exactly what the attribute free entails, but I assume that it is all about the free will of a Digimon, the ability to do something different than they were programmed for, the ability to make choices beyond their instinct. This actually might explain why DinoBeemon has 3 Digivolution lines depending on how it develops. Firstly, it can digivolve into Ground Kuwagamon. That is probably a path it took after putting more emphasis on the insect side, especially when we consider that Ground Kuwagamon is a Digimon that belongs to the insect type and is in fact related to Warmon, hence the link. By the way, for more information on the Digimon, I would suggest that you take a look at the Explaining Warmon or the Explaining Tentomon video. Secondly, DinoBeemon can further digivolve into Imperial Dramon Dragon Mode. I assume that this digivolution came to be once the dragon side took the upper hand. This suddenly reminds me that I have yet to talk about this fusion, even though I already talked about Veemon and Warmon. But we'll get there. To finish, DinoBeemon can further digivolve into Vespamon. I guess that it is the bee inside of DinoBeemon that took the upper hand. And you know, I might be taking things a little bit too far, but this might mean that a particular Vespamon that had a DinoBeemon as an ultimate, that it maybe has the strength of at least 2 Digimon, in our case Stingmon and X-Veemon, considering their fusion. And this would technically make it stronger and thus more likely to be a part of the 0.08% of the Royal Commando Corps. But then again, I'm only speculating. I would love to read your comments, as it is as much a mystery to me as it is for you. Alright, now that we are done explaining the Fanbeemon line, let us explore what we can about the royal base. From what is known, the base is a mysterious aerial covered honey base, inhabited only by Fanbeemon, Waspmon, Cannonbeemon and Vespamon. The fact that it is aerial only gives it more chances to endure, as airborne locations are always less likely to attract threats. This would give the Fanbeemon line an edge over most of the other Digimon. It would in fact definitely give it an edge over most other insect Digimon. It's actually funny, I already dedicated an entire video of 45 minutes about a Digimon alternate universe called Witchenly. There was more than enough information about that place, however there is simply so little information to explain the royal base, and that is actually the main reason why I simply had to include it in this video. But anyway, there aren't even hints or ideas on what the base might really look like. There is nothing to be found in those profiles or even on the internet. That is why I'm simply going to use some pictures of different aerial bases I might find on the internet just to give you some image. But what I can say is that because the Fanbeemon Digivolution line looks so technologically inspired, I think that this might be somewhat of a hint that the royal base is high probably very technologically advanced. After all, how else would it stay in the air? The royal base being so mysterious only makes me believe that there is more to it than we might think. Anthony Ailman wrote the following in the Nostalgia Night 5 community page. The royal base is maybe a reference to nests for beehives, as they have queens and it's technically their base of operations besides their house, as they are smarter than regular bees. To reply to this comment, by digging through the sources, I must say that the Fanbeemon line does look smarter than the other bee types, like for example a HoneyBeemon, a Digimon that is extremely fond of sweets and is known to be not very smart. The Fanbeemon line, in its profile at least, does also look a bit more intelligent than a DinoBeemon, considering its extremely ferocious personality. These two Digimon, HoneyBeemon and DinoBeemon, aren't really known as those that would construct something or even live in a society, whereas the Fanbeemon line does live like bees in a base, in a society that could indeed be a reference to a beehive, especially when we consider that all Digimon in that royal honey base carry specific responsibilities. That is showing intelligence. And speaking of roles within that society, let me give you more explanation about the individual members and their contribution. So Fanbeemon is both a worker and the first line of defense. As I said before, at the moment it spots a threat, it will contact its allies and attack with its comrades that might have venomous means of defense. Oh, and as the records tell, Fanbeemon does get along with other plant Digimon, like for example Palmon or Lilymon, but certainly other plant type. However, that does not necessarily mean that they are allies. Fanbeemon still belongs to a specific group, and as far as I know, they are not necessarily kind to strangers. Waspmon is the second line of defense, covering the entire surrounding area. If you were to find your way around the Fanbeemon, which by the way will surprise me, you will high probably be spotted by a Waspmon, thanks to its high reconnaissance abilities and thanks to its patrolling skills. Thirdly, Cannonbeemon, a massive Digimon, serves as the third and most prominent line of defense. For starters, it serves as the long-range lookout, and secondly, it covers the base in a 360-degree radius. As you know, the royal base is located somewhere in the air. It might not be threatened by those Digimon that are grounded, sure, but there are still more than enough threats in the air. Just think of the Beomon line. All of them are aerodynamically way too good to pose a threat for those that find themselves above the sky. And considering the maneuverability of one that can fly, the royal base can be attacked at basically any spot. Cannonbeemon is covering the base in a 360-degree radius, making the base more than well protected. To finish, you have the elite Vespamon that is also defending the base. High probably only the inside considering its appearance. Though I must say, I am wondering if it is protecting something or someone. I guess that would nonetheless remain a mystery. I'd like to pay some attention to that 0.08% I mentioned before. As is written, only the top 0.08% of Vespamon are inducted into the covered Honeycorps Royal Commando and then are awarded a code name. So first of all, I was wondering the following. We are talking about the elite 0.08%, but what does this say about the amount of Vespamon in that base? Are we talking about 50 of them? In which case only 4 Vespamon would be part of the elite corps, but maybe we are talking about 100 Vespamon or 200. 500, maybe even 1000 Vespamon. That would give us either 8, 16 or 40 elite Vespamon members. in which case that elite corps might have a few members, or maybe there are more than enough individual elite Vespamon members that develop that expertise in different areas, making them truly extremely menacing. Great Master 132 wrote the following in the Nostarna 12 community page. As far as I know, the royal base is still a mystery. No one has ever been able to approach it. Its function is also a mystery. The only thing for sure is that it is still under construction, since many Fanbeemon are still sent down to gather more raw materials to keep building the base. Well indeed, despite the base being under construction, it is already close to impossible to approach it. That alone is already extremely nuts. And ironically, I have discussed several different groupings or organizations in the Digimon franchise, and yet I would say that Fanbeemon's organization is high probably the best when it comes to defense. In the Pawn Chessmon video, I explained that King Chessmon is working on building a Chessmon empire, and yet no Digimon really see that as a potential threat, despite King Chessmon's surprisingly high intelligence. I made a video of 45 minutes explaining the organization of the Digimon alternate universe called Witchelny, and despite the citizens' abilities to use magic, still that world has known extreme challenges and wars, leaving a lot of destruction. I also mentioned the Zudomon Corps led by Vikimon. I mentioned it in the Explaining Gammamon video. We can tell that they are organized, but still, can we say that they are at the same level of Fanbeemon and the royal base that is still under construction? And you know what's worse? Every individual Digimon in the Fanbeemon line is a carrier of the X antibody, which means that at the moment Yggdrasil launched the X program that killed 98% of the Digimon population, no member of the royal base was affected. None of them was harmed or killed. Do you understand how crazy that is? It says a lot about the level of organization, especially when you consider that the program basically killed everyone, and yet Fanbeemon is still there with his army. Maybe to help you imagine how crazy a feat this is, imagine a major world war, where every country that owns a nuclear arsenal launched everything everywhere. I think that a lot would disappear, sort of like in the anime Hokuto no Ken, an anime that actually is the aftermath of a major nuclear war. The nuclear arsenal will not necessarily eliminate 98%, but a lot of people and animals and trees would cease to exist, without forgetting the after effects. And imagine that you survived such a blast, with your entire community, unharmed, still kicking, with elite soldiers there, ready to do battle if needed. That is the case for Fanbeemon. It is still there, with armies of Cannonbeemon, Waspmon and Vespamon that have a big arsenal to use against threats or potential threats in a world where almost everything is gone. That is actually really crazy. Not even those from Witchelny, one of the top societies in the Digimon universe, came close to such a feat. Not even Witchelny, with members that can use magic. As I said in that video, among the known members, a minority carried an X antibody, which means that most died, but in the royal base, everyone survived. That got me so curious that I went all the way to try and find something extra about the royal base. I wanted to know more about its purpose, about the reason of its creation, and there is simply nothing that can be found. Maybe the Digimon developers have yet to work on that. I guess we will find out after being patient. But I'd like to remind you to the fact that the Fanbeemon line have all the virus attributes. They have the potential of being extremely violent and are always driven by this thirst for power and domination. Maybe that is the reason for the creation of that royal base, considering that the Digimon universe is one that does bring forth the concept of power quite a lot. By the way, before I bring the video to a close, I would like to point you to something extremely interesting that actually might not necessarily be linked to the Fanbeemon line, but still very fun to know. There is an extremely interesting game called Digimon Masters. It is an online game. I have never heard of it until I began looking for more information concerning the royal base where Fanbeemon resides, and in that game there is a dungeon that is similarly called the royal base. It is a dungeon composing of 3 different rooms, and upon exploring each dungeon you will find many if not all members of the Royal Knight along with Yggdrasil. I don't want to say too much about it because I am more than convinced that the game hasn't much to do with Fanbeemon. However, it does seem crazy fun and I would love to say more about it in another video. In fact, I'd like to analyze other Digimon games because I did play a few and remember having so much fun playing them, but we'll see how it goes. Hey guys, this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Marine Solar, I really hope that this video somehow sparked your interest when it comes to Fanbeemon. It is true we are talking about the bee, but to me seriously, now that I studied what it is all about, how it survived the X program, how it is organized, I think I can easily put it in my top 3 most interesting insectoid Digimon. Its line is simply too well organized, and as you all know, the Digimon world is all about survival of the fittest. Sure, you may have the strongest weapons, you may have the highest durability and stamina, and yet if you have an organized group that will back you up, that is organized, trust me, you will definitely have more chances of surviving. Even the Royal Knights, a group with individual members that are extremely powerful, work together in team in order to face the bigger threats. So Fanbeemon to me is definitely among the best insectoid Digimon I have heard of, and I really hope that the Digimon developers will work on its story and the story of the royal base a bit more, because otherwise we are left in the shadows. I really believe that Digimon can become way bigger and more successful if the Digimon developers really understand how much potential the individual Digimon have. So hopefully one of those developers will see this video and hear me to realize that. In case you guys are new, you are always welcome. Please hit the subscribe button. We are trying to bring back the Digimon franchise with new ideas, with more exploring, with more analyzing. So please join the crew, let us talk together. And if you're new, know that all the Digimon videos are placed in the Digimon playlist. That way you can catch up on newer videos. I also have the Mythological Conversation playlist, which is a playlist dedicated to explore the inspirations that inspired the making of certain Digimon. And there is also another new playlist called the Digimon Comparison playlist, where we are going to compare Digimon to Pokemon, to Yu-Gi-Oh, to all of those. So a lot of good will come. Please make sure to join us, subscribe, and let us have some crazy much fun together.